Hello, farmers, and welcome to another episode of the harvest season. My name is Al,
My name is Micah.
and we're here today to talk about cottage core games. Woo!
Yippee!
Welcome back, Micah. It's actually not been that long.
Thanks.
It's only
No, it
been about
really
two
hasn't.
months.
Yeah. Which is wild because it feels like it's been a lot like the last 2 months has felt like an entire year. So
Yeah, the last month specifically.
yeah.
But we don't need to talk about that.
No.
Uh,
Yeah, of course not. I it's funny because I was like, why has it felt so in that moment just now? I was like, why does it feel like it's been so long? And then it clicked. So yeah, we don't need to
hmm,
we don't
I
need to
wonder.
discuss
Uh,
it.
Sometimes. Um, yes. And we still don't have any news on Story of Seasons for this year, which I'm still expecting something because it's been a very
Yeah,
long time. But who
I am
knows?
too. I hear you.
I'm just
I'm
waiting for that
expecting
announcement, and
to.
then we'll be like, right, this is when we're scheduling it in. Uh,
Yep, it's bound to happen. It's only a matter of time.
well, yeah, we have Micah here this episode because we are finally going to talk about Natsu Mon, 20th Century Summer Kid. We have
Yay!
tried a few times to actually record,
We did.
and things keep changing, but we finally got there. They didn't shadow drop a Story of Seasons, and we have to record about that instead.
Could you imagine that it was the now was when we got the story of season news?
Yeah, I've only had one case where I've noticed some news drop while I've been recording, mainly because I'm not tend to be looking at the places where news comes in to see
Sure.
these things. But yeah, it's never know one of these days.
You never know.
So we're going to talk about that. Obviously got the regular news, but first of all, Micah, what have you been up to?
Oh, just busy. Just got a lot going on. I have been as far as games though, I've been playing some Monster Hunter Wilds beta in preparation for that. At the
Is
point
that
that
still
we're
not out yet?
recording, it is going to be out next week. It's
Next
about a
week,
week.
right?
So I'm excited for that. I'm also, at that point in my life where I get a little bit anxious about a release for a game that I'm very excited about because then that means that I have to figure out time to play it.
Mm.
Um, and also worry about how hyperfixated I'm going to become with it and what that's going to do to all of the other responsibilities in my life. But I'm very excited for it. Um, I've also been playing Pokemon. I've been doing more shiny hunting. Um,
Are you still on your Gen? Is it Gen 2? That's what you were doing? I think
I
last time.
was doing Gen 3 last time
Oh,
we were
was it
talking
three?
about it.
Okay,
Yeah, I am doing that. So I have some friends in a community that do like full odds shiny hunting, which
crazy people I call them.
which adds an extra level of challenge and
Sadness.
I almost kind of find it like a little bit more relaxing because it's like
Interesting.
you settle in for it, like it's something that you're doing while you're doing other stuff or while you're like talking to people or while you're watching something because you know that it's going to take a long time. So it's just like you kind of settle in and do your encounters, do your resets, do whatever it is and don't really think about it until, you know, 3 months later when you finally get the shine.
I just find that I get bored when I do. So I tried Shaman in BDSP,
Mm-hmm.
and I did. I can't even remember what I got up to, like 2000 or something. I just
Yeah.
got bored of doing it every day, and
Yeah.
so I just stopped.
Yeah, that tends to be what happens. And that's very normal, and I respect you for
I don't
that.
think anybody has ever called me normal, but thank you.
But I have some friends that they do these, challenges throughout the year. They'll have like this last week was Shiny Alpha Week, and it was everybody hunts in for alpha Pokemon in Legends Arceus, or February was Unknown Challenge month, so
Hmm.
um it was you shiny hunt for an unknown, and then whatever letter unknown you get, then you have to shiny hunt something that starts with that letter. So like
Oh,
if
interesting.
I get an unknown M, then I can go hunt like Magnemite or something, you know? So yeah, there's just like fun little challenges and things to do. And I've got, if I'm like rendering something or I'm watching something or in a meeting and kind of listening, but also just like need something, it's just a little background thing I can do every once in a while.
Fair enough.
I have downloaded Rune Factory Pixel Cross,
Nice.
and I have not played it yet. So,
Well, I mean, it
I mean,
only
it
came out
just came
yesterday,
out.
so that's
Yeah,
fair.
yep. But I got to download it, and I'm ready to try it. I'm excited about the potential new, like the change, positive changes to it from the Story of Seasons version. So,
Yeah, I'm very
excited
intrigued.
to try
I'm not. I've done a little bit of it. It's one of the games that I played today, maybe
that.
like half an hour or so. So I've got a few, the standard tutorial puzzles and a few of the ones that actually make you think. And so I've not got to any of the extra stuff like the customization that's in this one.
Hmm.
But I did read on Fogu, share on there posted about it, and it looks like it is just kind of background customization. It doesn't seem to actually affect anything, which is what I expected, but
Yeah.
uh, a little
Yeah.
bit more detailed and interesting than the Story of Seasons one. And I'm intrigued and excited to try one of the boss levels that they have.
Oh,
Oh, have you
yeah,
not
I'm
seen the
interested in
boss level
that.
stuff?
No, I haven't. I haven't seen
Yeah.
anything about it. I actually didn't know that there were any improvements to the Story of Season model of it
Mm-hmm.
until you had mentioned it when we were talking about it on the Game of the Year episode.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm excited to try any of it because I haven't seen any of it yet.
Yeah. So I guess the big things for you would be there's color puzzles,
Mhm.
and the boss ones are like timed, and when you if you do something wrong, which come on, who does something wrong? You're just doing it too fast. Uh, it takes time off the timer.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So the have to do it within a certain amount of time because obviously, I mean, technically they're all timed, right? You can see how long it is, and it's
Right.
always fun in the first few ones to see like, oh, can I get this one done in 10 seconds, uh, or can I get this one done in 5 seconds? I think I
Yeah.
have one in 8 or something like that. That's the fastest one I have this game. But yeah, making you do it within a certain amount of time is an interesting, different way of doing it.
Mhm.
They do have two play styles, so you can skip that part of it if you want to. But yeah, it's
Skip
interesting.
the
The boss stuff.
oh the boss skip the
Yeah.
boss stuff. I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I really liked shoot, I can't remember the name of it. It was PictoQuest. That's what it was. And
mm,
that was the nonogram game on the Switch that, and probably on PC, I don't know, but I played it on the Switch and it was a very light RPG style of nonogram. It had a little bit, it was just like you're going across a map and then you challenge a goblin or whatever, and then it's just like a
yeah.
10 by 10 puzzle or something. And then you would get upgrades if you did certain things. So they had like there were a couple that were like, oh, it's a boss
Yeah.
thing, like a boss puzzle. And I really loved that idea. It just was so bare bones, I think.
Right.
Such a like early idea, like fresh and early idea that there wasn't a whole lot to it. So um
Yeah.
I I kind of hope that there are maybe more like use cases of that, like that kind of, adding quests and stuff to it, because that adds an extra level of interest that I would really enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not far enough into to see whether that is there or not. One
Hmm.
thing I did find interesting is that the puzzles are laid out like a map. So
Oh,
it's not just like you play this one, then you play the next one. It's like these are the ones you can do, and to unlock others, you have to beat ones in specific positions,
oh, interesting.
which I thought was an interesting way of doing it. So it's not
Hmm.
the I think as you go further out, the difficulty does increase, but it's not just like constant. I think I saw some that were further away from the middle that were not harder; they were slightly easier. That sort of thing. So
Sure.
yeah, interesting. See how that continues.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to try it. I've also been playing Hello Kitty Island Adventure,
Good, good, good. Is
of
it on the
course.
Switch for you?
Yes. Yeah. I
Bryce, what are
played
your thoughts?
some on the mobile. Played some
All
on
right,
Apple
yeah.
Arcade when it came out. Yeah, and
You did the same thing as me. You went, "This is a fun game. I want a controller."
yes, 100%. And I'm glad that I waited because it's a much better experience
Yeah.
on on the Switch, like with a controller. Uh, Becky has been absolutely enamored with it. It's her primary game that she plays now, and we did some of the multiplayer together, so that was an interesting experience. It was fun just like wandering around together and like doing things. There's not like a whole lot you can do multiplayer wise,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's great. It's such a good, I don't know, I really like it. I've been enjoying it. And then I played a little bit of Avowed, but I haven't played a lot yet. I don't know if you
I'm
uh
aware of it
have
because
touched it.
I listen to a lot of different gaming podcasts and videos and stuff like that. So I'm aware of it. I don't
Hmm.
think it's my thing, but I can see why people like it, and it sounds interesting.
Yeah. I like Obsidian, who's the developer. They did Fallout New Vegas, and they've done a lot of like
Yeah.
older RPGs and stuff like that. I'm a big Elder Scrolls fan, so there's some level of like hoping that it is in some way close to Elder Scrolls, given that it's, a team that has experience with Bethesda and it's fantasy and, first person and all that. I really like it so far, but it's not open world. It's very, like it's sectioned off, which I think makes sense for the game, but
Mhm.
uh it's on Game Pass, so you can't really complain, just
I mean,
paying for.
when has that ever stopped gamers before?
Oh, 100%. Uh, but yeah, I can't really see myself having like bought it if it wasn't available on Game Pass when it
Yeah,
when it launched, so yeah.
that is fair.
What about you other than Pixel Cross?
Yeah, well, not a huge amount this week. I think the big thing though, which obviously I need to talk about to you, Micah, is Harvest Moon
Hmm.
Home Sweet Home. I have hit credits in Harvest Moon Home Sweet Home.
Oh, that's big.
Yeah, it's
Are you
the
ready to do that all over again when it comes out on the Switch or whatever?
I will not. Uh, let's not even try and pretend that. Unless there's some way to transfer my save over, I'm not doing the early game again. Um, I had a couple of thoughts that I thought might be quite interesting. I presume you didn't continue playing it after
I
our
have not
episode.
played really
No.
much of anything from it, so.
So I think a few things that I found interesting having now completed the game. Although I'm in that annoying bit where I'm like, do I finish all these achievements or not? Because I have all bar. Let me just. I've got it up here. Let me just double check.
Now, are
Achievement.
these like in-game achievements or is it like Apple Arcade
It's app.
achievements or
It's
whatever?
Apple Game Center. It's not arcade
Yeah.
because
Oh yeah,
it's
sorry, Game
paid
Center,
for.
yeah.
But yeah, it's Game Center. Um,
Hmm.
so I have 48 of 68 achievements.
Holy
Um,
smokes.
and I think about 10 of those ones I don't have are just like shipping 50 of a specific one,
Okay.
specific crop. So I'm at the point where I'm like, I've basically got 10 left to do. But they're things like completing the crops encyclopedia, completing the fish encyclopedia. I have not once fished in this game. Uh, so I'm like, I don't know if I want to do those, but it feels like I'm so close, but it also no. Um, so yeah, let's see. What is my here's always an interesting thing. So I finished chapter 10, that is the final chapter, and only 2% of players have earned this achievement according to Apple. 2% have completed the story.
That's incredible. There's something really interesting about this to me that what was the game before Home Sweet Home? Was it One
Uh,
World?
no, One World was
No, One World was the
before
one before
that.
that.
The one before that, it was Winds
Oh,
of
Winds of
Anthos.
Anthos. That's right. And it's funny because I very distinctly remember you saying, I am returning this or trading it in or whatever, like
Yeah,
as soon as I get the opportunity to.
yeah.
And here we are, you have hit credits on Home Sweet Home.
Well, can I
which
just point
is
out? I think both of us hit credits in one world.
yes, we did. Yeah.
Because I think mainly because we were fascinated as to where it was going to end up.
Hmm.
I will say, I that's not why I finished this game. It's not because I was like, oh, I really need to know what happens with this story. The story is basically non-existent, right? Like it's basically
Right.
just you're making this town more more. That's it. Like
More
you're
and more.
making people happy and you're
Hmm.
doing things and that's it. Um, what I found really interesting, that you know the area that was like left of your farm that looked like it was a gated off area that you could access later on in the game.
Oh yeah.
You never unlock that. that's not
Oh,
that's not a thing. Is that meant to come in an update or something? It's even called, so it's called Alba Park,
I
and
don't
there's a
know.
gate there. Why can I not go that way? I've completed the game.
It has to be, right? Well, let me ask you this. What have they updated it at all since
Just the
since
just the one update that came out like what, a week after we recorded our last episode,
okay.
which
That
added the
was the only
controller
one.
support and adds cloud save, but the cloud save's broken still.
Okay, great.
That's the only update that I'm aware of happening,
Because
and
I
it's
distinctly remember too that there was um it looked like there were going to be spaces or like placeholders for other languages for text.
oh
Uh,
yeah.
and I remember thinking, oh, this is probably going to come in an update, but if they never added that either, there must be a bunch of things that were just like, we'll add this in an update at a later
Mm.
date, and maybe now it's either they just are no longer touching it, or it is they're just saving all those updates for the console release,
So
maybe.
this is where I break your brain yet again, Micah, and tell you that it has only been 6 months since this game came out.
What?
It was August.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember this. You did this to me on the Game of the Year episode too, and I like that blows my mind that it's only been that long. It feels like this game was 2 years ago.
um,
And that's not just because of the last month. It's
so I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't feel weird for there to be like, if we got an update in a month, I wouldn't be surprised. That would be like roughly about the time from the release to the last update. I don't know. I don't know if I actually believe this is coming to console.
yeah,
I feel like we would have heard something by now, right?
yeah, I think so too. I think if they announce a new Harvest Moon game that is not this, I think it's officially dead at that point, right?
Mm-hmm,
Like,
mm-hmm.
there's no way that they're going back to it. They are putting all of their resources
No,
into
no.
whatever the new thing is, if that's the case. So either I'm sure we'll get something from them sometime soon, but it will either be this coming to consoles or something new, and then it's just confirmation at that point that this is completely dead in the water.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm fascinated by this area that doesn't exist. Like I was fully
it's
expecting to
extremely
unlock it at
interesting.
some point, and it hasn't. The other couple of things I find interesting. So you do, so we'd complained about how it felt like you should be able to set a bunch of actions and get them to like water these 10 plants in a row. It feels like
Mhm.
that's what the interface was built for, but there didn't seem to be an example of that. You do unlock that later on, but you have to like progress the story to get that point.
Oh, okay.
But the disadvantage of that over your standard up upgrading your watering can, and now you can do like 20 at once. Instead, you have to like individually press on all 20 and then it does it manually. The disadvantage of that is it still takes the same amount of time in game to water, even when you have the highest level watering can.
Oh,
So, so
oh.
because it's just doing them all individually, right? You don't have to manually like go that one and now that one. You can like swipe over them and go like, want you to do all these. Or in the case of the controller, you can just press and drag. But it takes so long. Whereas in other farming games, you upgrade the watering can and you hold it down and then you've watered it all immediately, rather than having to wait for your character to like go and individually water all of these 20 things. Such a weird decision.
Yeah, that is strange.
Um, The other one is I unlocked sprinklers, and boy, are the sprinklers weird in this game. So they first of all, you only unlock the top level of sprinkler after you've finished the game, which is the only one worth doing. Because your first level of sprinkler is just your like four spots: top, bottom, left, right.
Yeah.
Never do them; they are never worth it.
Oh.
And your second level of sprinkler is a 3x3, so it's you get 8 spaces. Okay, but you don't unlock that until I think it's chapter 7 of 10, and by that point you probably don't need it. Like you've probably
You're
got
just
most of what
past
you
the point
need.
of yeah.
And then at the end of the game, you finally unlock the one that's 5x5. But the problem is, it doesn't fit in the plots properly. So the bottom plot is 6x5. So you put it in there, and you've got one line of 5 that doesn't get watered by it, and
Oh.
you can't put the sprinklers outside of it. So you can either have 24 fed by one sprinkler and then 5 manual, or 24 by one sprinkler and 4 by another sprinkler. It's like, I'm not going to do a whole other, because those are expensive. You have like, I think it's 12 different gems, including diamonds, which you can only get in the bottom level of the mine. I'm not going to waste all of those gems for four, four, four watered
Well, yeah.
spaces. And then you've got the
What
other
a
ones
weird
are,
oversight.
I know, all the other plots that you unlock are something by 4, not by 5. So so
Hmm.
you're wasting time. So I have one which is 8x5, and I've got 2 watering cans on that. Two sprinklers on that. So they're using up 2 spaces, which by the way feels a lot more of space in this game than it does in any other farming game, because you've got such restricted space to use.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like if it was laid out differently, it would almost all be covered by one sprinkler. It's just such a weird decision. I
Yeah, that's
don't
really strange.
understand why they've made these decisions.
And it makes me wonder if it was like I don't know, I can't even really think of a scenario for why that would be the case. Like maybe they just missed it or like they thought that maybe it was like automated calculations or something and it was just wrong for that. I don't know. It just feels like it would be something that someone would catch and be like, "Oh, we either have to like change the size of this plot a little bit or change the the ratio of spaces that this
I think that
sprinkler covers." I don't know.
yeah,
It's odd.
I think it would have been better to be like a sprinkler covers a row, and then when you unlock the higher ones, they cover more rows. So it
Mhm.
would mean that you could have like one that would cover 4 rows, and that would mean you could have one sprinkler for a section. And you put it at the side so it doesn't use up a crop space, because crop spaces are so limited here. And it would feel just much less frustrating in terms of the numbers. They've just taken a sprinkler in a normal farming game and put it into this game that is not done in a normal way, because they've thought about it completely differently.
Yeah, that's very very odd.
The final thing I have to say is the I don't know what we did. We talk about the soil health in our episode? I can't remember if we did.
Mm, I don't remember.
I don't think we
I
did,
don't
because
think we did.
I don't think we'd either of us had come across that. So soil health degrades in this game,
Okay.
which is very much like a realism wins over fun
I don't
part
know
of
that I
this game.
even witnessed that on my in
Yeah,
my own.
so it does happen. You just probably aren't noticing it because you don't get told about it until you
Oh,
unlock a better fertilizer maker later on. And
okay.
then they're like, oh, your soil health. If you click on this fertilizer maker, you can see your soil health. And you're like, oh, everything is sad. And so you basically have to, after a harvest of things, you have to let it sit for a bunch of days. And when I say a bunch of days, I mean it feels like it's like half a month you have to let it sit for to go back to its full soil health. Or you can use some compost to speed it up, but the compost is like really awkward to craft, or costs 2,500 per compost. It is so expensive. And so you spend the time rotating which plots you're actually using for crops and not actually doing what you want to do. And this is very much like, I understand you're going for realism here because that is what happens in real life. You have to rotate your crops, you have to rotate your soil, blah, 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 blah. But I'm not doing this for realism, right? Like, it makes
Yeah,
it frustrating.
if there's, I mean, I respect to some degree the idea of making the mechanics feel like they work realistically the way that it would in the real world, but like if nothing else in the game really feels like it is adhering very strictly to realism, then I don't know that that's really.
Yep.
I'm not really looking for realistic mechanics when I'm playing a Harvest Moon or like a Story of Seasons game, like I don't know.
It's always a balance with these things, but that
Right.
very much is on the no, I don't want this part of the thing. Oh, there's one thing I just remembered: horses. Right? Neither of us has gotten far enough to buy a horse.
Oh,
The last episode, you can buy horses. You
okay.
cannot ride the horses around the town.
What is the point?
You can
What do you do with them?
you can ride it around the paddock, but that's
Okay.
it. Why would you do that? For fun. That's it. That's literally the
Okay.
only purpose.
All
Why
right.
why would you bother doing that? I have no idea.
Uh,
No idea.
Again, maybe something that was intended to be added in future
But why
updates.
can you? I don't understand how you can ride it in one area and not in another area. Like, it's such a. It just has a wall and you can't go through it. Why?
It's just fascinating. I don't know. Yeah, maybe there's just some like maybe they couldn't get the pathing right or something, and they just were like, "I will fix this later." I don't know. There's a lot in that game that feels to me
Oh,
like
that's it actually. So you
we'll
know how
fix it later.
you know the press on the map and it'll automatically go there. That
Oh,
probably
okay.
I bet that doesn't work with horses. That'll be why you
Yeah.
can't do it.
Yeah. So that's either a case of we'll fix it later or we can't figure it out, so we're just not going to include it at all.
Yeah,
One of the two.
bizarre, bizarre decision. But there we are. It was good enough for me to finish, apparently. And I guess tune in next time to see whether I will continue trying to finish the achievements.
I wish you the best of luck. Godspeed.
I'm definitely going to do the 50 of each crop one because that I'm nearly done with that.
Yeah.
I literally have everything growing for that. Like in a week in game, that one will be done.
Yeah.
But I don't.
Well, I wish you the best of luck. It currently, I just was out of curiosity. I wanted to see on the Google Play Store. It currently has a 3.2 out of 5, which is
That feels
1,000 reviews.
fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that
I
feels
kind of feel like
fair.
maybe that is accurate. Oh, it says it was updated on December 10th.
Yeah, that was that update.
Oh, was it?
It dropped like 2 days after we recorded.
Oh,
That was the one with the cloud save and
got
the
it. Got it. Got it.
controller support, which is the only reason I'm playing the game because of controller support. I
Yeah.
couldn't keep playing it on the touchscreen, but the controller support is actually pretty good.
Yeah, interesting. I
Well,
guess
there
we'll
we go.
see what happens.
I rushed this week to make sure I'd finished so I could talk to you about it because I was like, I'm so close. I must finish before I talk to Micah. So there we go. Hit credits
I'm
in
impressed that you completed it, and I'm proud of you, and I hope that it was worth it.
that game.
That wasn't
Well,
intended to sound as
yeah,
as mean as it did.
it's better than Sugar Dew Valley. Sugar Dew Island. Sorry, let's put it that way.
Is that a segue? Is that a I can't tell
Well,
if that was an intentional segue or not.
well, the problem is it's like 5 bits into the game news. So let's just go through
Okay, all right.
let's talk about some news. Tales of the Shire has been delayed again.
Yeah.
Can I just say, please stop putting a date on your game, right? Just
Yeah.
stop it.
At this point, just like wait until you are close enough that you can say, "Hey, it's coming in a couple weeks,"
Yeah.
Because that's always like a kind of a fun surprise too, when something has a sudden release date like that.
Yes, it is murder for organizing a podcast about games, but yes, I will
True,
agree.
yeah.
I can see why people would find that fun. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's now coming out on the 29th of July. So, well,
Yeah.
maybe we'll see. That's what they're currently saying. But we're on our third release date so far. So let's see what happens.
Yeah. I was looking at some of the, against my better judgment, some of the discourse
Oh, no.
under this post just to see how people felt about it. Because my initial reaction whenever there's a delay like this is, okay, that's, if you need more time, take the time, work on it,
Yeah.
perfect it, whatever. Um, and that was, I feel like maybe a good 40 to 50% of the sentiment, and the other 50 to 60% was in the kind of camp of worry that because this is the second time that they've delayed it, that if things maybe are not going great development wise. But
Yeah,
I feel like,
I never understand that because it's like no, people are just being overly optimistic about these things. As someone who works
mhm,
in not in game development but in software development, that
yeah,
happens all the time, right? People
oh
will be
yeah,
like, "Oh, this is when it needs to happen," and then other people will be like, "It's not going to happen by then," but it
hmm
gets set as the date anyway, and then the day comes around and it hasn't happened, and it's like you can't make it happen, right? Like there's only a certain amount you can actually do, and adding more people on does not actually improve that, and sometimes it just takes more time. Like
yeah,
I find this with Pokemon every time, right, where people are like, oh, they just need to add more people. Adding more people does not speed up development times. Adding more
hmm
people quite often slows things down. It's not worth it.
right,
Right, and sometimes you just need the time. I just You can clearly see this as a fight between marketing and development. um I don't think
100%.
it's a sign of like serious problems in the game.
I don't think so either. I think people's gut reaction is to look at, other games that have gone into development hell and have never made their way out. And that's the concern. And it seemed, especially for the people that were kind of that had this sentiment where it's coming from a place of like concern because they're excited for the game,
Yeah.
and like, concerned because they want it to be really good, which is like better than, just saying like, well, I don't, this game's doomed or whatever, just like not really just being a doomer about it, just to be a doomer.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think from my personal experiences with stuff like this too, I do think that if they were looking at something that does come close to like a development hell, they would probably not put a second release date on it. It probably would be something along the lines of we need a little bit more time to work
Mhm.
on it and we'll update you in the future. And then at that point, we probably would hear maybe a couple things and then nothing ever again. But because they are putting a release date on it, it makes me think that, maybe if we get another delay after this, then yeah, I think it's time to be a little bit concerned. But uh, uh I think because they have a release date that if they miss a second release date or a third release date now, if they miss it, then there's going to be, it's there's a lot more stake in that, which like, kind of contradicts what we're saying about like just don't put a release date on it.
Yeah, I guess
But
the problem is those are two different things, right? We're talking about just in general. Don't
yeah.
give a release date unless you actually know when it's coming out. I guess it's difficult when you've given a release date and now you're like, oh, we don't know now. That I get worries people, and so I get why they kind of have to do that now because otherwise people are going to start, as you say, assuming the worst.
Right.
But I don't. I just I've said it so many times. I do not think people should put a release date on it until you are at most a month away, right? Like,
Right.
don't give us a year, sure. Because when people go, oh, we need some more time, it's going to be next year, right? Like, people are generally fine with that, especially if you're near the end of the year, they expect that's going to happen.
hmm
Um, and then, like, when you're like, oh, I'm pretty confident, then you can say, oh, it will happen in the second half or the quarter three or whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
Don't give us
Definitely.
a date until you know it's. If you wouldn't release it today, don't give us a date
Right.
because it's not going to happen. And
Yeah.
like, there are so few companies that do that, that give you a date and it comes out on that date. And, you know, one of the big ones is Pokemon, and it doesn't always work out well for them, right?
Hmm.
They give
Yeah,
you a
I
date
think
6 months
Nintendo
out and
stuff
they
and
release on that date, and then it's not a great game.
yeah, yep. Gosh. Pokemon Day is next week, so
I'm
I
so
guess we'll
excited
see
to see
what
what happens.
happens with it when they've got a little bit more time to cook it. We'll see what
Well,
happens.
there's a big assumption there that they actually have taken more time because we don't actually know
Yeah,
when
that's
development
true.
started on this game.
You're right. This applies to Tales of the Shire too, I think, but
Yeah.
but also for Pokemon. We're also something to take into account is that we're in the midst of a generation jump where
Mm.
like maybe that's not necessarily the case as much for Tales of the Shire, but I could see it being a possibility where they know that a large user base for cozy games like this is on the Switch or
Mm.
on handheld game, maybe like the Steam Deck or something like that. And if they're taking time because they know a little bit more about like maybe I don't know, a release window for Switch 2,
Well,
or
that's an interesting
they're
point because
trying to, co-develop a Switch and Switch 2 version so that they can release it on both, some of
yeah,
that stuff tends to throw a wrench in things that is kind of like not expected. Uh,
for most games, I would say there's no way that that is part of this delay. But I feel like I could see them have it. Like I could see that if they or I could see they could already have a Switch 2 dev kit because we know that some
mhm.
developers do. That has
Yeah.
been leaked. There are developers that have it. Indies almost certainly won't have it. Like there might be maybe a couple of big indies, like maybe Silk Song, for
Hmm.
example, is maybe that Team Cherry, that's what they're called, isn't it? Maybe they have one. I could maybe see, for example, Concerned Ape having one. I could see these developers having one, and so maybe that's part of it. That is a big possibility. I would say for most people it wouldn't be the case.
Oh
But
yeah,
I could see
100%.
Nintendo going, yeah, no, the people that are developing a cozy game about Lord of the Rings, yeah, let's make sure that
Yeah,
they're ready for this sort of
it's
thing.
the Tolkien property and it's
Yeah,
the what a workshop like there's a lot this they're not, small money. So
yeah.
but and if it is that they're taking time to be able to have that ready for in the event of, Switch 2 or whatever they're working on that kit, and that gives them the opportunity to make sure that it's Steam Deck verified and stuff like that, that really improves that experience for their core audience, I think. I mean, there's always going to be people who are playing on PC or uh PS5 or Xbox or whatever, but cozy games, I think it's pretty safe to say the core of the audience is playing either on the Switch or handheld to some degree. So um I could see that being a again, we won't know until till we s- see something come of it. Maybe there's uh things coincide, like we can kind of piece together, but yeah, I guess we'll see what happens when July 29th rolls around.
Yep. I
I'm
mean,
very
you never know.
excited
We
for
might.
it though.
I would say we wouldn't necessarily have to wait till then because if it is a Switch 2 thing, there will 100% be some games announced in April.
Oh sure, yeah.
They'll be like, Stardew Valley is going to be have a Switch 2 version that does this or whatever, and maybe this will be one of them. Who knows? I'm not saying this will definitely happen. You've not heard it here first. We're not saying that Tales of the
Yeah,
Shire is going to be Switch 2, but I could see it happening, and excited for April for that.
yeah, me too. I'm also excited just for this game in general. I'm very excited for this game.
Cool. Next we have, okay, I think it's just meant to be fantasy. Is it Fantasy Life I? Is that how you're meant to say these games? Because I know this is a series of games, but I don't know if it's just Fantasy Life I.
This is the first one that has I in the
Oh,
title,
is it
so
really?
I yeah, this is a
Amazing. Okay,
new
perfect.
experience. So,
No notes. Fantasy Life I, The Girl Who Steals Time. Um,
mhm.
we have a release date for this. So it's coming on the 21st of May. And also, it's now coming to Steam and PlayStation and Xbox. So it was previously meant to just be on Switch. And I believe it was a 3DS game, the previous one.
It was. They also had a mobile game that did
Oh,
not do too great.
surprise,
Um,
surprise.
they did the classic level 5 maneuver of just kind of abandoning it once it, didn't really take off the way they'd hoped it did. So, it is no longer functional as a mobile game. So,
Oh, this is
uh,
only this. If you ignore the mobile game, this is only the second game in the series. Then
yes, yeah. There was the way that it released in Japan was it was Fantasy Life, and then they did Fantasy Life Link, which added extra stuff to it. So it was like, a definitive version of it. And then we got the West got the like full release of it. So there's some like kind of weird stuff with it, but yeah, this is ultimately just the second one. Uh, one of the best games on the 3DS, in my opinion.
interesting.
It's
And
a
this,
fantastic game.
I did not realize that this was the Yokai and Professor Layton people.
It is.
So there you go.
Yep.
Now we
Level
know.
5, big fan of level 5. I'm a little bit apprehensive about anything that they're doing from this point on because they have been very deep in the generative AI.
Oh,
They did like they recently showed off their I guess spiritual successor to Yokai Watch, which is something hotel. I can't remember, some haunted hotel property, and pretty much the entire trailer was like generative AI. So
is that Holy Horror
I am,
Mansion?
yes, that's it. That is it. So I'm hoping that because this was prior to their big like this game existed prior to their big like push into generative AI that like hopefully it doesn't. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I have a very strong love-hate relationship with level 5 at this point, so uh
Yeah.
I'm very excited and also nervous about this because I loved Fantasy Life. It's such a good game on the 3DS, but hopefully it's good.
Yeah, it looks interesting. Um, I like how I like the graphics and everything, and I'm excited to try it out when it releases in May.
It's got crossplay too, which is
Yes, across
always
everything,
excited
multiplayer
for
crossplay.
crossplay.
Very cool.
Uh, Monster Hunter is doing that. I'm very hopeful that this is the future of multiplayer in general, that everybody's going to be doing crossplay. So
Yes, I can understand the like, oh, you don't want when you've got like a competitive game, you don't want keyboard and mouse players playing with controller players. But um, the problem with that argument is always, well, you can be a controller player on a PC.
mhm.
And so like you can't restrict that. So why restrict the other things? I do think if they do something like that, I like when they do like options. Like you can either be just with people on your system or you can be with anyone. And in this case, it doesn't really matter because it's just co-op, right? It does not a competitive, you know, every millisecond counts type of game anyway.
Yeah,
It also has two-player local co-op, couch
shocked.
co-op.
I'm actually shocked about that, I guess, because that's not a like normal thing these days.
No, it's cool.
So that's pretty neat.
Next, we have the Garden Path have released their co-op update. So you can probably guess what that gives, what that brings to the game.
Would you say that it's co-op?
Yes.
Okay.
Uh, interestingly, so if you actually look in the patch notes, one of the first update is players can now hold hands in multiplayer by selecting the emote in the emote selector. I love how they've put in the effort to allow you to hold hands. There you go.
I love that.
I haven't played this game. Uh, that's all.
Yeah, I haven't either. So uh it's it looks interesting. I mean I really like the art style and stuff. I just yeah, it hasn't been on my radar enough.
Well, a game that has been on our radar, but probably not as much as we originally thought it might, is Spirit Tea. They have released their Phantom Friends update, which brings you can now have spirits as pets, which is a fun little addition. I think if you're enjoying that game, this will be a nice little addition to that.
It looks very cute.
Also, as always, with the Spirit Tea
Cat
update, there's
spirit.
new spirits and quests as well.
Mhm.
Yes, Sugar Dew Island. So
We made it.
I would,
We got there.
goodness me. I wouldn't normally bring up an update this small for a game, especially a game like Sugar Dew Island, which I don't think should exist. But they have updated a few things that I complained about in my last episode when I reviewed it. So I felt like I should bring those up, because if those specific things and not everything else that I said about the game were the reasons that you're not playing it, then maybe you will now. So selling items in the shop no longer requires energy. Hooray. Fantastic. Just what we want. And you can now craft energy bars. So you don't have to go and just buy them. You can craft them, which is good, because that was a weird decision not to allow you to eat anything you grow. But as I say in my show notes here, it is still not a good game. So there we go.
I'm so curious. I'm just so curious. Oh, there's a demo, so I guess I don't need to be that curious.
Yes,
I
the
can
demo
just
is out
try
now.
it.
If you want to try it, feel free.
I feel like I have to. It's just so fascinating to me, and how like anti Sugar Dew Island you are makes me want to try it.
This is the thing. I don't like being negative about games. And I was talking in the Slack to some of the patrons, and I was like, I don't think I've ever been this negative about a game that I've covered on the podcast. And it's like at every example that people brought up about a game I was negative about, it was, I don't like this, but it's not for
Yeah.
me. Other people will. I understand it. It's like, I did not like my time at Porsche, but that was because I really didn't like how the crafting worked. If we're ignoring all the Switch issues with that game, and all the like the Harvest Moons, maybe the closest thing we can get to other things that I've said are bad, but like we've talked about them before, they're getting better, and it feels like they're actually trying there. Yeah, almost everything that I've been negative about, it's been, I don't like this, but I can understand why other people would. And this game is, I don't like this, and I don't think you should play this game. I think that this game exists purely to try and cash in on an existing popular genre, and I do not understand how this game ended up in the way that it did. And it's still not technically out yet, so there's no reviews on Steam, but that'll be fun to watch when it does.
Watch, you were in the distinct minority for people who.
That will be so funny. I mean, I'm fascinated because there are people who say that they're excited about this game, and there are curators who've reviewed it and said that it's good. But I feel like they're just saying that about everything.
Yeah, all I've heard about the game, I've heard from you, so I guess let that say what it says about it. I'm curious. I'm gonna download that demo though, and then the next time that we talk on an episode, I'll save all my thoughts for it.
I mean, or feel free to send me a message, and I can get some feedback in the episode next week.
Yeah, I'll do that.
So we have 2 games that have released roadmaps. The first of which is Paleo Pines. They appear to be bringing a new Kickstarter out this year, but they haven't said what it is other than it. I think they're saying that it's more content for Paleo Pines rather than a new game.
Oh, okay.
So it's a DLC Kickstarter, maybe?
Paleo Pines related or...
So it's hard to know but based on what they're saying, I'm pretty sure they're saying it's more Paleo Pines, because they're talking about the Paleo Pines roadmap. And what else did they say? Yes, we've been open about the challenges we faced as a studio, and we're thrilled about the possibility of reuniting some of the original team to bring more content to Paleo Pines.
Oh,
We want to be totally transparent with everyone. In late 2024, when things were particularly bleak, we really considered shuttering the project altogether. The financial and emotional strain was significant. However, after careful consideration, we realized that stopping wouldn't be fair to our dedicated team or our supportive community. So much passion has been poured into this project, and your support through plushie and merch sales has been instrumental in keeping us going. We're still here, and we're completely rejuvenated to make things happen this year. Our vibe for 2025 is all about collaborating with our players more closely than ever before through our Kickstarter, our research project. Thank you, and more. Thank you so much for still being here, and we hope to do you proud this year. And then they have a PDF linked with the roadmap that says that their Kickstarter is going to launch in April.
Yeah, so that does sound like it's very specifically Paleo Pines.
Yeah, which some
I don't know.
Everyone I know that's played it has loved it.
Yeah, it's really cute. It's a lot of fun. I guess I'm kind of shocked. I didn't realize that they were struggling as much as they were. Because I thought that it was pretty well received. I think that anybody that I've talked to that's played it has really enjoyed it. But yeah. I'm excited to see more from it. I'm happy that they're not, I'm always happy to hear that a developer is not, having to shut or anything. But just for Paleo Pines in specific, I'm excited to see more content for it because it's very cute.
Yeah,
they did a great job with it.
Echoes of the Plum
pretty good. I just say it's a pretty good roadmap though. It's very detailed,
it's very detailed, which means that it will definitely not be 100% right.
Yep. It's too
detailed, too specific.
Yeah.
I can see the Kickstarter going in April, as they say, but everything else I think will be pushed a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, so this says the survey stage of our Power of Peaceful Play research. That's their research project that they're referencing.
Yeah, so I didn't cover this on the podcast, but they talk. In fact, well, because this is the first episode since they announced it, apparently. But there's another thing on Steam, which is the Power of Peaceful Play, a research project. We want to share something exciting with you all. We've received a small amount of funding to undertake a research project into the power of wholesome gaming, and Paleo Pines in particular, on emotional and mental health, with a focus on neurodiverse/divergent players. This research will be done through online surveys, both quantitative and qualitative. We want to find out what parts of wholesome, cozy, peaceful gaming really promote. What parts of wholesome, cozy, peaceful gaming really promote relaxation, focus, and other positive emotions. And this research will help us identify which game design elements may contribute to this positive impact to inform future game development, both for Paleo Pines and the wider gaming industry. And their first survey is linked in Steam if you want to go and do it. That will be open until the 4th of March, which will be nearly a week after this episode comes out.
Okay, that's very cool.
And they say the research is independently funded, separate from game and merchandise development. So it's not like propping up their game development.
Sure, yeah. That's very cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Good on them.
It'll be interesting to see what the outcome is of that. But if you want to partake in their research, the Google form is linked on their Steam page. And I will probably link it in our show notes if I remember. We shall see.
That's a crucial step.
Remembering things, yeah. We also have a roadmap for Echoes of the Plum Grove, who just released their Switch version, like last week, I think. So they have detailed 3 updates coming, one in March, one in April, and one in May. I don't believe that. We'll see. That's very fast to get 3 updates.
That is quick. Yeah.
It's mostly content, but what I will say I'm finding interesting is the April update, which adds custom controls and like some other control related things, and also better modding support, which is always
pinning.
Good.
I don't really know what that. Maybe like wish listing, sort of like. I
don't know what that means.
Yeah, I have no idea.
I don't think I played the game enough to know what that would mean. So I'm sure we'll get more information on it when the actual update comes out.
Sure. I haven't played the game at all, so you would know better than I would.
Yeah, so there we go. That is another roadmap. We love a good roadmap.
Love a good roadmap.
All right, I think that's all the news. So it's now time to talk about one of Micah's favorite games. Natsu Mon 20th Century Summer Kid. before we get into it, I will say I'm so sorry, Micah. I have tried so many times to play this game, and I just can't. I do need to talk to you about the Ghost Girl, though. That is one thing I will need to discuss. But
I'm excited to hear why. So I think it's a good. Okay. All right.
okay, I mean, shall I talk about that first? Then let's talk about that first, and then you can get into talking about the actual game.
Sure. Sure.
I think this is 100% a me problem. This is absolutely not a problem with the game. Like I said before, most of the games I've not been a fan of is it is not a problem with the game. It is a problem with me. Um, I just can't get. This is going to sound so silly for a podcast on cottagecore games. It is too relaxed for me. It is too slow. It is too unfocused.
So I would be intrigued to see if I took you and I plopped you in the middle of the game,
Mm.
what your feeling would be at that point.
That is that is very possible that I would feel differently because there are some games like it's not rare for me to take like a week to get my first 2 hours in a game, and
Mhm.
then I'll get another 100 hours in the next 2 weeks. Um, but I almost always do manage to push through, and I'm so like it almost puts me to sleep with how slow it is and how unfocused. Because the game starts off right. Let me. This feels like a good place to
Set the
start, right?
stage.
So
Yeah.
we've got you are a kid who's gone to this town for your summer holidays,
Yes.
and you're shown around the house, and you're shown your like you've got your bag and you empty out into your desk and you've got your different things, including your journal, which by the way the saving in the journal in this very cute. I love that. That is really good. This is a really nice thing, is that like after you do an activity and you've saved, it like populates the journal with what you did. Really
Mhm.
love that. It is
Not just
so
populates it with
nice.
what you did, but it's in it's a sketchbook, right? So it's like in the style of your character, who is this kid, is drawing pictures, like colored pencil pictures of all of the things that he did that day, right?
Yeah, it's
So it's
adorable. I
very
love it.
charming.
It's
Yeah.
so good, especially as one of my kids loves to draw, and he will draw everything. It really feels real to me,
Hmm.
right? Like that is a thing. Like I wasn't really a drawing kid. That's not my thing.
Yeah.
But I have now experienced that with having a kid who does draw, and it just feels like a kid would do that sort of thing. I did this, I did that, and little really bad drawings, but it's cute.
Hmm.
Um, and then it kind of goes, okay, go talk to people, and you're like, what?
So
What do you mean talk to people?
just to rewind a little bit, the core of it, you're right, is it's this kid who is kind of plopped in this small town for his summer, which is essentially just a month. The game takes place over 31 days, uh, and you are your family is part of in this one in specific, your family is part of a circus. Your dad and your mom run a circus, a traveling circus, and this town is where they are setting up for their next circus gig. So, uh, they have things that they need to take care of. So you are plopped in this small town with initially some of your circus friends and family, I guess you would say. They're just the the people who work in the circus, the acts in the circus and stuff like that. And so you're all staying in this house together, with the woman who's hosting you, and it is a very small rural Japanese town. And it takes place, uh, at the turn of the century, which is 20th century kid. That's the whole,
Mhm.
that's the name of it. So there's not a lot going on, right? Like there's not a lot of like, there's no video games, there's no cell phones, it's very much just like you got to go outside, you got to play, you got to, maybe catch some bugs, maybe go fishing. Uh, but as the game develops over time, there's all of these things that you have to do, and it becomes much more of a time management and like, sort of resource management, more in the sense of the time management aspect of it. Um, and you are starting to um kind of manage all of these other things that are happening. So when you get to the 15th day, I guess this is, maybe spoilers, but like not really spoilers. I don't know. It's going to
Let's
be
just
hard
let's
to like
yeah
talk
let
about
let
this without
let's just let's just go for it. If
spoiling
you
some of
really
it.
care, if anything you've heard about this game is interesting and you don't want to be spoiled, go play the game then. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think we're gonna hold against that stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
let's go for it.
So for the first portion of the game, it's the first 15 days. It's kind of this lead up to uh you know more people, because when you first get there, it's just you and a few people from the circus. It's not everybody. So because they've all got their like own things going on, so then they are like, oh, we'll catch up with you later. So eventually they do come to the town, and you add these characters into the story. um and it really becomes a lot about the people in the town, what they're doing, what their lives are like, and how you can help them or affect their lives. Like, there's a reporter who is trying to get his paper, the small town paper, uh, some stories, so that there's some excitement and stuff. So, when you talk to him, he asks you about what's been going on, what you've been doing, and you fill him in. And over time, then his paper starts to do well if you are, focusing on that. Or, um, and there are things that are missable. It's not like it's, all of this stuff just plays out super linear. You can focus on whatever you want to focus on. And that's kind of uh, the main engine of the game, is that you are living out your this summer month however you want. You can spend the entire 31 days just fishing and doing nothing else, ignoring everybody in the town, not doing any of the story stuff. And the game will progress all the way to that 31st day, 31st day, and then the game will end. You'll get an ending, and then that's it. You clear it, you can go back and do a new game plus and play it a different way. Uh or you can min max and do absolutely everything that you can possibly do every day throughout the entire month. And that involves all kinds of things, like making all of the connections that you can make with all of the characters, learning all that you can about their different quirks, and it really is about the unique characters and townspeople and the people in the circus that you're a part of. And it's learning about them, learning their secrets and the stuff that they have going on in their lives. Some of it gets really deep, some of it gets really emotional. Some of it is just kind of goofy. Like there's a very suspicious guy, because part of the premise for this too is that your family's circus was unable to pay they were doing so poorly that they were unable to pay their previous venue, and they're uh indebted to that venue, and not really like on the run, but like they just they owe money to them. So uh there is this suspicious guy that is kind of like eavesdropping on you and your circus mates. And uh you get the idea that maybe he's like a debt collector or something, or like maybe he's trying to, and it turns out that he's kind of just a goofy detective that is just eavesdrops on everybody in the town, and he doesn't really know what to do because he has no direction for himself. And he wants to have a like big break for something, and he can't really figure it out. So there's all these like really interesting little quirks to all these characters that you learn as you progress through the 31 days. and how you how you play out that time and who you interact with and what you focus on. You know, there's all kinds of other stuff too. Like there's a museum and there's fossils and you can add fish and you know, much in the way that like Animal Crossing is, where you add the fossils and the fish and
Mhm, mhm.
the bugs and stuff and fill out the museum that way. Uh,
I think
there's
as you've been talking, I think I figured out my issue with the game.
okay.
So, because I do think that if I were to get into the game, I would probably enjoy it.
Hmm.
However, if we compare this to, say, Animal Crossing or Stardew Valley, those games also have, I mean, Animal Crossing less, I guess, also have like the stories and the people and the stuff that you're there to learn, and I loved that in Stardew Valley, but I think if I think I didn't get started in Stardew Valley because of that. I got started with farming, right? And you start by farming, and it's like this is what you do. You go out every day and you plant your crops, and then you water them, and then you harvest them. And that
Hmm.
was like the core part of that game was doing that, and everything else was kind of background to start with.
Yeah.
And the problem I think here is there is not that core loop doesn't exist. The core loop in this game is you go out and you talk to people and you try and figure things out. And
Yeah.
I think that's my problem is that's a hard thing for me to grasp onto without something else there to start me off to then get me interested in other things.
So they do kind of try to put you in this loop, right? Where like when you first start the game, when you first get there, they say, you know, go do this or go do that. And that's where you start to learn about like, you know, the fishing and the bug catching and stuff. And really the first day, the majority of what you can do is get acquainted with the people in the town, sort of. Some of them are busy, some of them are, you know, but the majority of what you're doing is just like, I'm gonna catch some fish and I'm gonna catch some bugs, and maybe the woman who's hosting our group, you know, she's cooking meals and she's cooking dinner and stuff like that, and uh she wants some fish, and maybe I bring some fish and she cooks it and stuff like that. It's just like little quests, little fetch quest stuff. Um, and then over time, what happens is you're over the next couple days, your own loop starts to form where they have every morning they have daily radio calisthenics where you and a bunch of people in the town go to the local shrine and you do the radio calisthenics together. And then after that, you know, there's somebody who wants you to light all of the lanterns on a path, and he wants you to do that every day, or not, you know, the he says do it so many times in a row, or like so many times, and then report back to me. And ultimately what that turns into is like you're doing it every day, right? Like
Mhm.
um so then you figure out, well, because those lanterns are right by the shrine, then after I do the calisthenics, then I'm going to light all the lanterns. And then, you know, there's this thing that I can do. So that loop starts to form over time. And the way that it's set up is each day is progresses from morning until evening, and then you are forced back to the house
Mhm.
uh for dinner. They come and find you wherever you are, and they say it's dinner time. So you go back, you eat dinner with your group, your little family, and then uh you have the evening to go out and do whatever you want until they tell you that it's time to go to bed. So you have two chunks of the day, and it becomes kind of figuring out these are the things that I can do during the daytime because these people are at these locations, and you know, if I'm going to be bringing these bugs to the museum, I have to do it during the daytime. And then, you know, there's a band that plays that uh one of the missions is to hear them play a certain amount of songs, and they'll be at nighttime or whatever. So I have to do that, you know. So you kind of, as you learn about the way that the town functions, who's doing what at each time, and what your quests entail, your gameplay loop starts to form for yourself. Again, you can choose to not do any of this,
Yeah, well, I think
but
this is
that's where it, like if you are trying to complete the quest, then that's where that starts to come into play.
yeah, and I think this is the problem. You've only reinforced my theory about why this is because when I was like, oh, there's no like core. This is the gameplay loop, and everything else is like other things that you can do. You mentioned about four things that would have been that example, and I think that's the problem. Is there isn't one thing that goes like this is the game,
Well,
and there's so many other things you can do, and you can learn them as you go, etc., etc. But like when you're if you take Stardew as the example, you start the game and it's like here are turnip seeds, grow these turnip seeds. You're like okay, cool, I'll do that,
mhm.
and like and then it goes oh, and also you should say hello to everybody in the town, but you start out by doing that very core. This is the point of this game is farming. And yeah, you don't technically need to do that to do any of you could ignore that completely if you wanted to, but it's very in your face of like this is the thing to start off with. If you don't know what anything else to do this. Whereas I think this game does, if you don't know anything else to do, here are five options. And you're like, I don't want five options. I don't know which one I want to do. Give me one thing to do. Um, and I think that's the problem.
Yeah, and I think the core, like, so like there is there's a couple things that are like core. I would label as like core mechanics. One of them being upgrading your stamina. So you have these stickers that show up on the bottom of the screen that are like basically your stamina bar.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing certain things or completing certain tasks, you're collecting these stickers that will build up your stamina over time. And those are it's kind of a dual purpose. Like it's your stamina bar, and also it's the like signifier of your progress. Like you've got all of these stickers, so it's this is how much stuff you've done and whatever. Um, and that's introduced really early. That's like one of the first things that they introduce, and that when you do quests, then you get those stickers. And so there are, I think also in addition to that, a lot of what they show you early on, like yes, the one of the like primary quests that they first introduce is go speak to everybody, but you can really like do that over the course of 3 days. It's not something that has to be done immediately.
I don't think you probably
But then
could do
there's
it
a
in
lot
one day.
of yeah, yeah, yeah. But then there's a lot of like, like I said, catch a fish because she wants to cook the fish for dinner or something. It introduces the fishing mechanic, and then it kind of shows you like, hey, I can just for the rest of the night I can go fishing or I can catch bugs. And you get that like positive feedback of every time you catch a new bug, every time you catch a new fish, every time you do something new, you get that sketch in the sketchbook. And that's also kind of um like a progress indicator, but
Mhm.
also, like I said, that positive feedback. And that's something for me, especially like that's almost the completionist point for me is like I want to fill out that sketchbook. I want to get those sketches because I want to feel like I'm seeing as much as I can throughout my playthrough of the game.
Mhm.
Um, so it introduces that, but I think the like the one of the main mechanics is introduced at the halfway point. So, like I said, there's something that happens at the 15-day mark
Uh-huh.
where as you're going through that first 15 days, you're, getting you're getting acquainted with everyone, you're getting associated with the town. They talk about, they used to have this summer festival and they don't anymore because there's no attendance for it. People don't stop caring. Um, and they want to do it again. So, you offer up this idea that, well, we can pair it with a circus show. And so that, maybe that'll
Mm.
entice people to come to the festival too. So the first day that actually happens is the 15th. And from the 15th on, now you have the ability to every night you can run a circus show. And because the the circus manager hasn't made it to the town, you are essentially
Hmm.
planning out these are the things that are going to be in the show. This is the first act, this is the second act, this is the third act, and this is like the final act. This is the music that's going to play through it. And you have to plan this circus show before the circus show happens at night. There's also a fireworks show that you can have that is paired with the festival, and you work with the pyrotechnic guy who runs the fireworks to pick out what fireworks are going to go to like make sure that it's a good show. So it becomes this, like this kind of like management game where you're managing the circus, you're managing the fireworks show. There's things that like upgrades to the circus that you can get, like better equipment, better outfits for the people who are in the circus to improve the rating that you get. Because then there's this bar of, the amount of profit and success that you're getting from the circus and whether or not it's actually, you're doing well. And all of those upgrades and stuff affect that. So that hopefully you can make enough money to be able to pay for the venue instead of, not being able to pay for the venue like you did with the previous town that your circus troupe was in. And so that really becomes from day 15 on, that becomes a big part of the, the loop, is that the majority of the day is doing all this other stuff, like, doing the interaction things that you do with the townspeople to develop their stories. And then at night, it's planning out the festivities for the summer festivities for the evening. And that becomes a big part of it. Granted, it takes to day 15 to get there, but once you get there, then the game really changes quite a bit. And as you go through the game too, different parts of the map open up so that there are new things that get added, like the museum gets added at one point. Uh, there's a another big like cave area that gets added. There's they as part of the DLC, there's like a separate island that you can go to at one point that you can spend your day doing stuff on that island. And there's a whole like mystery kind of like detective story, like kid detective story that plays out on that island. So um there's tons of stuff to do. It just, it is very gradual in like introducing it all to you. And I think
Mhm.
part of that is because Millennium Kitchen, the developer for this, their, primary game is this franchise, which is the Boku no Natsu Yasumi franchise, which just means my summer vacation. It translates to my summer vacation. And there have been multiple of these games. This is what the Shin-Chan games were and all that. And those all were much more relaxed than this one is, where it was very much just there was, stuff that was going on that's like, oh, you have to do this, and there's like a mystery here and there, or whatever. But like there's so much to do in this one. By the time you get to, you know, the first 5 days, then 10 days, then 15 days on, uh, that it's a pretty drastic change from what they have historically done for the summer vacation games. It's also the first time that they've done kind of like this open world-ish, like third person 3D. The majority of the time it's been, pre-rendered backgrounds and fixed camera angles and stuff like that, which really is, has had a very wonderful and beautiful like art style to it. It's
Mhm.
really been a part of the charm, but this is a new, they're trying to feels like very much like they're trying to modernize it. And so uh there's a lot that's changed from the previous ones, and I think this is kind of like they start early, early on in the game. It's a kind of more gradual than it is like just very abrupt. Like here's a ton of stuff to do right away. Um, so I think in the context of what they're used to doing, or what the series is, it's it makes a little bit more sense of why it's, not like immediately, day one is you're doing circus stuff. and why it
Yeah,
like kind of leads into that.
and I guess I'm not trying to say that it should have everything all at the start. I think that would actually make it worse. Like I don't
Hmm.
think the gradual aspect is the problem. I think it's the lack of a single clear. If you don't know what to do, do this is I think the thing that's missing.
Yeah.
Because I think that everything that it has in the game is lovely, and I think that I actually really enjoyed like the like travel in the game, stuff like that. But I was just kind of moving around the world, existing and not really knowing what it was I wanted to do.
Hmm.
I think that's the only thing that I'm trying to say here, and I don't think this is a
Yeah.
like massive downer on the game because there are probably lots of people who that's not a problem, right? And they will figure out what they want to do. And I think that is literally only something I think needs to exist for new people, right? Because if I go into Stardew now, I know exactly what I'm going to do, right? Like I don't need to be told to
Hmm.
farm. But that first time that I played, I think I did,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And I think that, there's some other things that are unique to this or that to this franchise and this series of games is that just for a little bit of like background on it too, the whole idea of this is, and this may just be where it's, just not for you necessarily, is that the concept of the game, or the reason that they created these games to begin with, was they wanted to, it was, these game developers that became salarymen in Japan, and they're working constantly, and they've lost their childhood, and these games are supposed to be, this is your childhood again. You're reliving your childhood. You're reliving a the summer months in your childhood where you don't have to do anything. You have
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
direction. You're relaxed. You have no responsibilities, and that's where the
Yeah, no,
premise comes from.
you're
So.
totally right. And I guess maybe that's a point. Like maybe it would feel weird if it did have that because
Hmm.
that's the entire point of the game. But I guess that's I mean, we're in real time me figuring out why I didn't like the game, right?
Yeah, yeah,
um,
100%. And
and
it's
the
totally
thing
valid.
is that
It's
it feels
it's
a little
just.
it feels a little bit like I feel like one of those people going, "Oh, Dark Souls should have an easy mode," right? Like, I'm not saying they should necessarily change the game. I'm just saying like this is the reason, I guess, why I didn't
Hmm.
get into it despite everything.
Right.
Um, let's talk about some other stuff. Uh,
Sure.
one thing I really liked was the travel. I loved trying to climb up the buildings,
Hmm.
which is just so
Yeah.
silly. They didn't need to do
Yeah.
that. This game could have worked entirely if you were at ground level or going up steps the whole time, but they allowed you to climb buildings.
Yeah, which becomes a pretty big part of it too. Like there's whole milestones in the game for climbing all of the like highest points in of certain, like the highest building, the highest mountaintop, and so on and so forth. Because they make this reference early on in the first day when you get there that like your character likes to climb stuff and gets in trouble for it sometimes.
Yeah.
And then you're upgrading your stamina so that you can climb more stuff higher, and that becomes part of the game. But that wasn't part of it prior to this game. You were pretty much just at ground level all the time. It was just like, wandering around towns and stuff. So that is something for this series and this franchise, like, is a completely new aspect to it. So
Yeah.
I really did also like I like the movement. I'm assuming that you didn't get to it, but there's some other things too, like there's basically like a glider. It's called a Tengu cape, which is like uh like a Japanese mythological you know character is a Tengu, and there's this whole story about like Natsu Mon and the Tengu and so on that takes place in the game. That's part of like the lore, but the Tengu cape is basically like the Breath of the Wild glider, right? So you can like you can climb all the way up to the highest point and then jump off and glide endlessly wherever you want to go. But it's a very missable item it's like something that is, it's like a bonus reward for seeking out the kind of like hidden lore of the game, of the town and stuff. So uh I do feel a little bit weird about like that being something that's so hidden because it's such a like big benefit for the traversal in the game.
Yeah.
But even without that, I think just the running and the hopping and climbing stuff functions so well that it's just an extra benefit to have the gliding.
I do like as well how, like, although with the stamina, it's not just like a hard, you can't climb higher than this point. There's lots of things that you can like stop on and continue
Hmm.
climbing after you've regained stamina. Because like I got up some pretty tall buildings
Yeah.
when I shouldn't have had the stamina for that. Because there's like air conditioning units and windowsills that you can stop on and continue. And it's difficult, right? Because you might trip and fall, and that's
Hmm.
it if you
Right.
overextend yourself. But like it allows you that flexibility, which I thought was pretty fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really good. There's only a few things that are like really gated, for like one of them being the lighthouse. Like that, it's very clear that they want you to really have close to max stamina at least to be able to climb all the way to the top of the lighthouse. Because they don't put any of those stops. It's very perfectly. It feels very perfectly. Uh, very perfectly tall for exactly how much stamina is like you need to get there. Like it's very specific, it feels like, and deliberate. But other than that, yeah, there's the majority of things are pretty accessible. um
Yeah. I have a question.
hmm
So I encountered a ghost girl.
okay, yeah, you brought up the ghost girl and I was wondering.
Yes. I found her on a random rooftop on my first day. I feel like
Yes.
I feel like that's quite early to experience a ghost girl. But my question is, are there many kind of mystical elements like that? Or is that like kind of an odd one out?
So there's some that is definitely an odd one out. There's some kind of like, uh, I guess, you have things like you can come across fossils and like, basically rebuild an entire mammoth, for skeleton, like stuff that like probably a kid's not actually doing. It's just like, there's some level of imagination to it,
Yes,
right?
of course. Yeah.
As far as actual mystical stuff goes, though, I that's pretty much the only thing. There's some, there's this, like I said, there's this like deeper level lore about Natsu Mon and the island and one of the specific characters on the island, um that you kind of learn about, and that has, the Tengu and this like Japanese mythology, and that is an element, but it's not really ever very visual to you. It's more just like
Mm.
talked about. So definitely the Ghost Girl is like a standout in that regard. But she's very present throughout the game. She is, I feel like, literally everywhere. So the mechanic for the Ghost Girl is that she's got these games that you play.
Yes.
It's basically the ghost of a little girl who just wants to play games with somebody, and you are seemingly the only person who can see her, so you are the only person that can play games with her. And she does things like, we play tag and you just chase her through, chase, quote unquote. You're just going to like checkpoints where she's standing, and then she disappears and then reappears at the next checkpoint. Very simple. Um, and that's like playing tag. Or there's playing targets where she spawns balloons and you have to shoot them with your acorn gun. uh or one of them is like, there's a single rain boot, like a red rain boot on this porch or something, and then you have to go find the other red rain boot and bring it back and place it next to it. um just like weird little things like that. But there's a ton of those throughout the game. I feel like I felt like I was always encountering. I would always, because she kind of calls out to you when you're close, so that you know that there's a mini game
Right.
nearby.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So
I
what
feel
you're
like I
saying
was
is it wasn't
constantly
actually that
hearing
rare
the
for me to find her on the first day then.
no, no. And they introduce it early on too, because they introduced that, I mentioned the lighting the lanterns on that path up to the shrine. That's a
Uh-huh.
really early mechanic that they introduce, and she's kind of part of that. She's part of the, like, that's how they introduce her is I took all the like, I knocked the lights off of the lanterns or whatever, so that, you'd have to reset them back up or whatever. Um and that's when you meet her, and that kind of triggers the whole thing. So uh there is also a castle on the island, and there's some stuff in the castle that feels a little bit um magical, I guess, but it also is uh you know there's no like creatures in it or anything, or like, other ghosts or anything like that. It's just like puzzles that you have to do inside the castle. um so yeah,
Fair enough.
that's pretty much it for.
Is there anything else you want to talk about this game? Because I feel like the problem is normally what we do with these games is we cover like here are the core mechanics and like here's what about farming and here's about fit. It doesn't really feel like this game fits that narrative, and it's more just like the game
uh
and how it makes you feel, right?
It is 100% a like uh it's a slice of life game. That's the whole,
Yeah,
the vibe of it. It is a very relaxing game. It has some of those, kind of farming game element, or like cottagecore game elements of fishing and bug catching, and uh, you know, little like cooking, like management things. And uh it has a lot of those elements, but they're in the context of, it's a very relaxing setting. And it does pick up, like I said, halfway through, where you're doing a lot more, and you are, buying equipment and new clothes for your circus troupe and stuff like that. But it's very much intended to feel like you are living a relaxing life that you would not probably not be able to normally live, especially as a carefree kid on summer vacation.
that's why you like this game, isn't it? You want to have no responsibilities.
I mean, that's a big part of why they make it, so yeah, it's definitely an experience that is unique. I think that it's a very unique game. And I think it deserves more attention than it gets. Uh, because it's such a, I don't know, it's such a charming game, and the characters are so well developed. They're so well written. There's such like good stories to them, and there's so much just charm in this small town in general. There's the sound design and everything is beautiful. Everything sounds like summer. It's, cicadas, it's birds chirping, it's the sounds of the wind, it's, the sounds of the ocean, rustling of leaves and trees and stuff like that. Really well done. And that there's not much music to be had throughout the game, because it's just the sounds of summer. And then at night, it's crickets, and as you walk through the town, there's a little bar that all of the adults in the town go and drink at this bar outside, and they're all chatting. And the way that sound design is done is just very much, you get the feeling of being on the street with these adults talking. And it's just such a unique experience that is very much a feel good experience that you don't get with a lot of games. The art style is really great. It's, you know, a very nice game to look at. Everything has
Yeah.
this kind of like textured brush to it. So it feels like at any point you could take a still of the game and it would look like it's an illustration, which is something that Millennium Kitchen has always been very good at in all of the Natsu Yasumi games. It's especially with their pre-rendered backgrounds and stuff like that. It's very beautiful art. The Shinchan games too, just beautiful pre-rendered backgrounds, beautiful landscapes, and um, stills of the town that you're in there. And this is just that, but in a 3D setting. And I think it has there's such a perfect it's unique enough, but there's still so much to it that intersects with what we enjoy about cottagecore games or cozy games or whatever you want to call them. That if you enjoy those games, I feel like you owe it to yourself to at least try and see if it's something for you. Uh, and this is the most modernized take on it so far. Um, the Shinchan games, obviously, very good. Those are the first ones that have been, you know, like localized and translated and everything. None of the other Natsu Yasumi games made it stateside, so or to the West in general. So there was no translation. There were fan translations for them, but these are really the first like official ones that we've gotten. So I think they're all good starting points, but this is such a modern experience that I think it's the best introduction to it for people who might be new to it. Yeah, I just really love it, and I wish more people would play it. Who knows if we're gonna get anything again from them? I don't know what the reception was for Natsu Mon as far as like sales figures go. I don't think we ever got any of that information. So, um,
Yeah, it's hard to I tend to look at the review numbers to get a vague idea.
mhm,
But other than that, it doesn't give you any real clue. Um, it's sitting at very positive reviews, but it's only 100 of them. So
right.
it's not, super loads of them.
It's
Um,
also too. I feel like this is an important thing to mention because uh it's a pretty significant aspect of the game is that they're short games. So the idea is that you want to have subsequent playthroughs of the game because you're not going to be able to do everything in one run or like, most of the time if you're playing this for the first time, you're not really looking out for certain things and you'll miss a bunch of stuff, but that by the end of it you're like, "Oh, I wish it would have done this or I wish it would have done that." And then if you decide to play through it again, then you can go and do those things and it's short enough that it gives you the opportunity to do those. I think it's somewhere in the ballpark of like now short in comparison to most games, I'll say it's somewhere in the ballpark of like 15 to 20 hours. And it really depends too on how you set the time of day because you can set the time of day in the game. And this is new to this too. They haven't done this before. You can set it to for the time of day to go very slowly so that you can do as much as you want, or you can set it to for the time of for the time to progress really fast throughout the day, to shorten the actual gameplay time. So you can crank through the game pretty quickly if you're just you know setting the time progression to as fast as possible and just doing the essentials throughout the day and uh barreling towards that final day of summer.
cool. All right. I mean, yeah. I
Lots of
wish I
different
wish
endings too,
I can
so
imagine
that's
if it's
part of
only
the
if it's very time limited and there's lots to do.
hmm yeah.
How many times have you played through it?
Once and like complete one time and I've started a second playthrough that I haven't
Right.
finished, but the kind of the neat thing again, this is sort of spoilers but not really. I mean it is the way that the game ends without giving specifics because there are so many different endings to it is uh because it's kind of narrated throughout as this kid as a grown up reminiscing, so
All right.
the end of the game essentially is depending on what you did throughout the summer It's uh what that resulted in you as an adult doing with your life. So like maybe what your career path was or what you succeeded in or something like that. And there's kind of like a little recap about that. So and that's kind of classic for these games. They've always kind of done that where it's like, you as an adult, what you did and how it affected your life. So yeah, pretty neat and unique. I suggest people play it, but it's definitely not going to be for everybody. Like it is not for you,
Clearly. But this, I mean, I want to make it clear again, as I do every time. This is not me saying the game is bad. This is me saying it's not for me.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah,
it's not.
totally.
It's not Sugar Dew Island. All right. Well,
yeah, if you're looking for structure,
look, everybody's different with these things.
definitely not, for you, but or maybe it is, it gets there eventually. But yeah, it's very good.
It eventually has some structure.
Yes.
Not the selling point you make it out to be. All right. Well, thank you for joining me to finally talk about this game.
Yeah, of course.
6 months later, and I still didn't play very much of it. But I tried. I promise I tried. I tried so much.
I appreciate you trying.
Where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me, I'm going to say specifically at this point on Blue Sky.
Fair.
You can find me if you just search Micah the Brave. I'm on there. You'll find me. I'm also on Twitch. It very rarely do I, do some of my shiny hunting live, but sometimes it's just Micah the Brave there as well. At pretty much anywhere you look, you at pretty much anywhere that you can go and type Micah the Brave, it's probably me.
You can find me at the Scottbot on mastodon.scot and Blue Sky. You can find the podcast at THS Pod on Tumblr and on Blue Sky. You can, however, send us feedback also on our website, harvestseason.club, where you can also find links to everything to do with the podcast, including our Patreon, patreon.com/thspod, where you can get access to our Slack and chat about things. There's been lots of fun conversation this week about Sugar Dew Island. And also get access to our bonus podcasts, where we just put one out of me and Kevin predicting what will happen in Pokemon Day, the Pokemon Day Presents. So come and listen to that before. Either come and listen to it before to see what we think, or come and listen to it afterwards to see how wrong we were. And then hopefully, next Saturday, we will be releasing reactions to that. I say hopefully because Pokemon Day is on the Thursday, so that will be quite tight, but hopefully we'll manage to do that. I don't often promise things. I'm not promising, but I am saying that I'm hoping this will happen. So we'll see. Yeah, I think that's everything. Thank you, Micah, again for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, listeners, for listening. And until next time, have a good harvest.
Hey, we were pretty good that time. We got there.
The Harvest Season is created by Al McKinley, with support from our patrons, including our pro farmers, Kevin, Stuart, and Elisa. Our art is done by Micah the Brave, and our music is done by Nick Burgess. Feel free to visit our website, harvestseason.club, for show notes and links to things we discussed in this episode.
I'm going to do that again so that it sounds, I guess, a little bit better than
highest quality possible, so it can go into these people's £5 headphones or tinny phone speakers.